of internet issues. Unfortunately, Nurse Arnita will not be joining us, so that's a real loss. But we do have Nurse Ann, so we're in good hands. Devel, I was going to say, would you please manage the chat for us, please?
Absolutely, I'm already on it.
All right, and then I see. We'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So, welcome to our virtual program on nutritional nuggets or nutrition awareness. We are thrilled that you could join us today. And for your information and viewing and listening pleasure, we have some wonderful guest panelists who are here with us today, who will be introducing themselves and give us a bit of background in terms of how they're able to come across the information they have and what part or role they may play in you knowing more about nutrition and things that impact your health. We'll go ahead and get started with introductions. We will also have a time for questions at the end, although we do have some questions that we've generated. Please, at any time for our audience, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. Or you can also raise your hand. There's an icon down here where you can simply click that and it will let us know that you have a question. Okay. So with that, we will go ahead and start. All right, so the first thing that we're going to be looking at is an agenda to let you know how we're going to be using our time. So we'll have our introduction, then we'll also have the discussion of the questions, any questions or comments you may have, and then at the conclusion, we will have an evaluation for you to fill out. So we ask that you do that. At this time, as I said previously, Nurse Arnita will not be able to join us today. However, we do have Nurse Ann, Eric. So if she could start the introductions, and then we'll hear from Mr. Devel Kent, followed by Chef Jay Wiggins, and then myself.
Hello. So yes, I am Ann Eric, and I am one of the nurses at the Wellness Center. And where I have obtained my information, well, we got a nice website called choosemyplate.gov. So we can put that in there so that people know that that's someplace you can go to get lots of information on healthy foods, as well as recipes, which I think we're going to get some sharing on that too.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And Nurse Ann is one of our nurses in the Wellness Center. And so she's all things medical and wellness. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask her. And I see that Devel put the website in the chat. So that is perfect. All right. We'll go ahead and hear from Mr. Kent.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to participate again. My name is Devel Kent. I am one of the licensed counselors with the Wellness Center under the subunit of counseling services, and it is a pleasure to be here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Devel. And then we are wonderfully blessed by a appearance from one of our culinary arts faculty members, Chef Jay Wiggins. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Chef Jay Wiggins, and I'm one of the instructors at the Health and Wellness Center over at the Culinary Arts Center. So it's a division of the Culinary Arts Center. I am also a culinary arts instructor at Theodore Roosevelt High School in Washington, D.C. And I am all things food and wellness. So if it is anything that I can suggest that will alleviate you having to take some medicine, I'm well equipped to do that. I was a biology major in college and a chemistry minor. So my two loves of medicine and healing people and food have come together. And this is the ministry that I've been on for the last 8 years.
Excellent. Well, okay. So I'm hearing that you are a wealth of information that we will definitely draw from.
Sure.
Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. And I see that we have several students joining us. So please feel free if you'd like to put your email address in the chat. In doing so, we collect a pool of names in which we then draw from at the end of the year for a raffle. So feel free to let us know who you are. All right, so start off with some general questions, and some will be specific to our panelists. Others will be very general for anyone. If you want to answer, please feel free to do that. So I guess we'll start off with the idea of when people say you are what you eat. What does that mean?
I'll go ahead. The statement "you are what you eat" means that your body utilizes the foods that you eat for gas or nutrition. Think of yourself as a car. All right. Some of us have cars that take 87 octane gas, some take 93 octane gas, but we all have the same body. Okay. Not a car, but a body. So we should all replenish ourselves with things that feed ourselves in a good way. Let's look at spaghetti squash, asparagus, squashes. They're high in fiber, so they will cleanse your colon. Okay, and they're also nutrient dense. So once that food hits your stomach, your body knows which enzymes to release to break that food down and then draw the nutrients out that it needs to uh, uh, function at optimal levels, if you will. You don't put 87 gas in a 93 car because it will not perform the way that it was intended to perform. Will it work? Sure. Your body will work if you don't eat all day, but is that the optimal conditions for it to function? So you are what you eat means take in good things and you will radiate good things, if you will.
Okay. All right. Would anyone else like to add to that?
Well, I think when we start about taking in good things, we try to emphasize breakfast because that is a good thing to get us going. And it actually, if we eat breakfast, it should help somewhat with just controlling our weight because of, just getting started with our day. And it also can improve our concentration by eating the types of foods that would be helpful, like whole grains. We always emphasize that. Hard-boiled eggs, yogurt, things that we usually consider to be breakfast items.
Okay. Well, Nurse Ann, you bring up a good point, and I'll address this to the panel. What servings of food are necessary for healthy eating?
Well, I can refer to that my my plate, which is a nice one, where if you look at half of a plate, you're going to have at least 3/4 of them vegetables, fruits, at least 1/4 of them. Okay, great, you got it. That's beautiful. And then the grains, like you see there, that's about half of the other plate in proteins. Proteins, of course, including poultry, beans, nuts, cheese, fish, that type of thing. And the pyramid, I don't know, maybe Chef can speak about that. Is that totally out, or do they still use the pyramid?
So they do. They do. I haven't always been a great fan of the pyramid because the pyramid kind of lends itself to and forgive me if I get on a soapbox, please stop me. Okay. The pyramid kind of lends itself to selling excess products that the government has in excess. Okay. I love the vegetables, fruits, and grains. Vegetables, fruits, and grains are all our brothers and sisters. We are a creation just like them. All right. And they have, plants have an outer bark. All right. Even an apple, that skin bark, the outside of an asparagus bark, broccoli, and those fibrous things help keep our systems clean. There was a time in our not so distant history where meats and proteins were luxury items. So you didn't eat them every day, every meal. It might have been just Sunday, right? Oh. And that's why Sunday meals were so important. We had meat. It was something you didn't have all week. And then if you had leftover meat, you had some form of hash because it wasn't enough to feed a whole family. So you mixed it with potatoes and spices and you had hash on Monday. But access, I believe, has led to excess, which has led to disease. So I would make the protein side a little bit smaller because you can get better proteins from vegetables, fruits, and grains. And because we haven't been exposed as a people to a lot of dairy, a lot of us are lactose intolerant. So it's a great plate. It has shifted from the last time I actually looked at it. Protein whittles away. Protein is whittling away. All right. So maybe one day, we'll be eating normal sized chicken breasts instead of the bloated ones that we have in our protein sections.
You mean to tell me there's no such thing as a jumbo chicken?
Absolutely not, man.
Okay, all righty. So then in terms of you hear a lot about carbs, stay away from carbs. So it looks like, according to the food pyramid, that's where that fear of carbs came from, because it's so extensive. I mean, it's the basis for it, and yet I don't see it reflected in the choosemyplate.gov. Can that be explained? Why the fear of carbs?
The fear of carbs during times like this, we're not as mobile as we have been, and just because we're not as mobile, if you eat the way we have been eating, you're going to naturally put on some pounds because you're not burning those carbs off. Now let's look at a carb. Let's look at what's in the carbs. There is nothing naturally occurring in that area. You may see no, because fruits and vegetables would fall under, potatoes and rice would fall there. Mm-hmm. Is there anything Is there anything that is naturally occurring in the carb area with bread, cereals, and potatoes? Other than potatoes? No.
No, it's
So
all
those
processed.
are all processed wheat, flour, and they are, and you all are going to love this part, they're fillers. We're talking to a DMV area crowd and some outsiders. There is nothing worse than eating a crab cake with a lot of filler.
Oh, you're getting to the heart of it now.
Right. You have to know the organs. So, breads and cereals are fillers, something to get you by. In my opinion, it is excess grain and flour that the government sells at a very low price. Think about the cost of bread and flour and butter and dairy products, low. So if they can sell it to us at such a low price point, imagine what they're getting it for. Filler. It makes you have the sensation of being full, but are you nutritionally satisfied? No.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can almost eliminate. You can almost, right? No fillers for my crab cakes, please. Right, Miss Nelson? Exactly. So
Yes.
when you eat a sandwich, and look, I'm from New York. I love a good hoagie or something. But when you eat a sandwich, you are filling up on mostly bread. When you eat a hamburger, that 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, there's about this much burger and that much bread. So what are you really eating? Filler, something to get you by, something to sit on your stomach and give you the sensation of being satisfied, but you're really full.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. There's a couple of questions that we actually have from our audience on this particular topic. So let's go ahead and bring those in. Devel, could you go ahead and voice those, please?
Sure. It says, what about people who have a hard time losing weight because of hormonal issues? Are there any foods we should avoid that impact hormones negatively?
Great question.
Great question.
Nurse Ann or Chef Wiggins?
Wow. Go ahead, Nurse Ann.
Well, I'm going to try to think about that for a minute. I can think about foods that generally are unhealthy, as we were talking about before.
Okay.
With
let's start there.
Like you said, the carbohydrate related foods that are from processed foods that have high saturated fats and high trans fats. So I think those would probably be a part of affecting hormones negatively. Don't you think so, Chef?
I know that food affects mood. So, and moods have a correlation with hormones. I cannot concretely say that foods catalyze hormones to be released, but I do know that comfort food is called comfort food because it gives you a feeling or a sensation of home, a certain place in life. So, okay, let me give you an example. Let me bring it on home. I hated baked beans growing up. Hated it. Because all my father would do was crack the can, put it in the saucepan, and then you eat it. I didn't learn until I was grown that you can jazz baked beans up. So when I see Campbell's baked beans, I'm sure there's a hormonal release that says "ew." You know, does it affect my mood? No, but it does take me to a place where my mother was doing something and daddy couldn't cook, so I had to sit there and eat my beans. So, will it stop you from losing weight? I would just say stay away from the carbs and eat more fiber. You know, that's my go-to. Fibrous vegetables, and I don't believe that it has a direct hormonal effect. But you will feel better once you start eating better. Guaranteed. And if you feel better, you're gonna project, an air of confidence and feeling better. And I'm sure hormones fit in there somewhere.
The other part of that would be definitely to speak with your physician, because if you think you're having some sort of hormonal negative release, or something about your hormones seems off balance or off kilter, it's really a good idea to maybe have some blood work done and have your primary care physician take a look at that. You may have some be deficient in some nutrients. You may need some supplements. So it's best to really check that out with a medical personnel. Definitely. And particularly if you're of a certain age, I might add. Now, what that age is, I'm not going to say, but you probably know. So,
we have another question in the chat.
Excellent. All right, good. I was going to go to one, but let's hear from our audience.
It says, aren't beans a great source of fiber?
Absolutely. Beans are a great source of fiber, and they are the original protein. Okay, they are packed full of protein. And what we've gotten away from, we don't eat beans because we have access to meat. There used to be a time where you could create masterpieces with beans. And if you look at the cultures that still have beans as a staple in their diet, they have less heart disease because beans are super duper low, if not exempt from the fat content that can coagulate in our arteries that we get from meat protein. So beans are an excellent source of anything. And it's the fresh ones, not the canned ones. The only difference between the canned ones and the fresh ones are you have to soak them overnight. So with healthy eating, there's a little bit of forethought that has to be implemented. And we need to get back to that instead of running around trying to make ends meet with the finances and treat our bodies and our health like we do our paychecks. Go get it.
Okay. Well, can either of you talk about what to look for with healthy snack options?
I think that goes back to all the fresh foods that the chef was talking about. Vegetables and fruits of all colors. And again, like I mentioned, avoiding the processed foods like we like in many regards, but those are definitely the ones that are going to have the increased sodium, increased sugars, increased saturated fats, increased trans fats.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. Getting back to nature is the best thing for desserts and sweets. You don't want to overload on a lot of fruit because fruits do contain sucrose, which is the sugar. It's the cousin of glucose. All right. So all sugars get stored on the body to be used later. Sugar is an upper and a downer at the same time. Going back to the hormone question, Anything that shoots you up the mountain and then drops you off a cliff would probably have some hormonal effects. Granolas, homemade granolas. Yeah, I'm a chef. Forgive me. I can't make it. I'm going to learn how to make it. Okay, because if I make it, I know what's in it. And I know that there are no preservatives, hormones added to. I have I got a book yesterday called Modern Gastronomy, gastrointestinal, gastric juices. So it's how to manipulate foods in a good way so that they're more beneficial for the body. So I mean, this is like my life's work. Thank you, Mr. Kent. Thank you. For allowing me to be on this panel. It's awesome.
Well, thank you for coming.
Definitely. Okay, so we've been talking a little about food, and Chef Wiggins, you mentioned anything that takes you up the mountain and then drops you off the cliff. And I can't help but wonder as I sit here and drink my cup of coffee, can you or either Nurse Ann talk about the impact of caffeine and the many sources it may come from, and perhaps what's a safe amount to consume?
Well, we can see what the chef says about that, but just looking in this literature, they're saying about 200 milligrams, which would be around 1 to 2 cups of coffee, 2 to 3 cups of tea, and there's so many other things that contain caffeine. So I'll let you take it, Chef.
So coffee, sugar, tea, depending on the type of tea, and meat are some of those items that can take you up the cliff and then drop you off. Coffee does have its place. Tea does have its place, and I'll tell you what I do with coffee. I grind my own beans. Okay, I have a grinder right over there, and fresh coffee ground beans with fat added to it. And let me tell you what that is. I add a pat of butter, a tablespoon of cream, and some coconut oil. All three of those are fats. I put a tablespoon of each of those in my coffee if I drink it in the morning. What that does, it tricks the body into burning fat immediately. So when you whatever you break your fast with, breakfast, break fast, you slept overnight, so that was your fast. Breakfast's name came because you're breaking the fast, the non-eating fast. Okay, so whatever you eat first is what your body will burn throughout the day. Initially, I fat load in the morning, and because I'm up and moving, the body starts burning fat, and it will continue to burn fat over the course of the day. So that's how I use coffee. No sugar. Because I'm grinding the coffee myself, it's a better product than the instant coffee that you're used to consuming. It's a more natural product. Tea, only honey. I don't use any sugar substitutes other than natural honey. And you should drink, your hibiscus, your hibiscus, your raspberries, your blueberries, your gingers, your chamomiles. Tea was a way that our ancestors used to heal. So if you consume 3 or 4 cups of tea, tea has the tea leaves, just like the leaves on a tree. Tea leaves have medicinal properties that can heal, and there's no sugar. I don't put any sugar in those. And finally, meat. When you eat a lot of meat, you feel like you've been anchored. Red meat takes 7 days to completely get out of your system. So if you eat a hamburger every day, 5 days a week, you're putting yourself, into next week and into the following week of digesting food that's in your system. Your body carries a temperature of 98.6 degrees. So what's going to happen to that meat that's in your system? It becomes rancid and toxic to your system because it's sitting there in the danger zone of temperature between 41 and 135 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going somewhere. But that's chef talk. So if that food is there, it's becoming toxic. And anything that's toxic is not good for your body. Will you live? Sure. Will you function at optimal levels? No, you will not. So.
Chef, I had a question in the chat again.
Well,
they wanted to know if you could
excellent.
restate the title of the book that you showed us moments ago.
Modern extra.
Thank you so much.
You got it. I just put it in
Excellent.
the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay.
We got one more question.
Okay. Oh, here we go. We got another question. Great.
Can you talk
fine.
about
Go ahead.
why breakfast is important? And sometimes I eat around 3 p.m. and my mom shouts a lot.
Can we hear from Nurse Ann and then followed by Chef Wiggins, because I think she had actually started that conversation about the breakfast.
Yes, I was just saying, somewhat like the chef was saying about why he uses like the coconut oil and butter is it does get you going. So eating a breakfast of, like I mentioned, like the whole grains and maybe an egg or yogurt, and then it does improve your concentration because you're getting moving and thinking, and it also can help maintaining your weight because that is like breaking the fast, as the chef said. So that certainly can help you not eat more for lunch or dinner, that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Chef, could you add to that, please?
Yes. Grazing is an awesome thing. Okay. Animals that eat grass don't eat a whole meal in 10 minutes and then you just see them walking around. They may take a nibble here, a nibble there. If you look back on history, breakfast as we know it was created less than 100 years ago. Okay. Breakfast used to be whatever was available to eat. I live in Virginia right now, but I have visited areas further south and, the southwest part of the United States where breakfast might be a pork chop, greens, and, a biscuit. But breakfast was created, and I alluded to this earlier, breakfast was created to get rid of excess grains and dairy that the government had. Okay, a box of cereal you see costs $5. It can feed 10 people. What 10 people can eat off of a box of cereal. Is it the greatest thing? No. Sugar, sodium, and excess grain. Milk. Cows used to produce X amount of milk, gallons of milk. Now, they're hooked up to a machine all day. Would you like to be hooked up to a machine all day? No. Could a mother produce milk for a child all day long? No. So how do the cows and animals where we get these products from do this? Hormones that we take into our systems. I'm not a big breakfast fan, not at all, as you can tell. But almonds help control weight. Dried fruits that have no added sugar. That's part of the grazing. Grab a little handful of something, eat it. Hour later, good. You're hungry again. Graze again. What you don't want to ever feel is, oh my God, I'm so hungry. That's not good, because that means you are running on fumes. You know how people say you should eat 6 times a day? It's not those meals that, the formal meal. It's grazing. Have you ever made a fire? When you make a fire, do you put on a big log or do you put on little small logs? I'll answer it for you. The little small logs. Because it's kindling, you have to get the fire started. If you place a big clump of wood on a fire, what happens? The fire goes out, or it dies down and then has to build back up, which is why we get and I'm, if you know me, if you know this, the itis after a big meal. Usually when you've had the itis, you have eaten something that is not the best for you nutritionally. Think about it. Thanksgiving, let's go straight there. Thanksgiving, macaroni and cheese, cream, sitting on you. It's not a whole lot of vegetables at Thanksgiving. You have your greens and stuff, but the majority of stuff is cakes, pies, and sweet stuff or sodium stuff. That's why you feel like that. What can the body do with that big log? So the grazing is like adding kindling to a fire. And it'll continue to burn, add a little bit more kindling. It'll burn bigger with a smaller amount of food than if you ate a big formal meal.
Okay. Very good. I see our time is not so much winding down, but just want to keep abreast of it. Please keep your questions coming. We'll probably stop what we're doing around 1:20. So that gives us about 10, 12 more minutes to ask additional questions and get some more information. Devella, are there any questions in the chat? If not, I've got a couple more for our panelists.
There is one question that just popped up a few minutes ago. It says,
Great.
Can you provide us input on sleeping within a healthy diet? Sometimes I tend to study and work a lot, and my mother gets at me because she thinks I don't sleep enough and thinks that it will affect me dramatically.
Your mom is right. Not sleeping enough can affect you dramatically. There have been studies that have shown that not sleeping can equate to someone who is drunk in terms of the way in which they operate machinery or function. And so we actually did a little sleep campaign last month. I think it was last month or earlier this month. And we talked about sleeping and the average hours that an adult should get. An adult meaning 26 and up is 7 to 9 hours. For teenagers and I know you're not a teenager if you're 23, but for the purposes of the study and the body growing and maturing, adolescence has been extended. And so during that period of adolescence that might go up to 24, 25, we would also, there's the expectation of having more sleep as well. So you're looking at the higher number that maybe like 8 to 10 hours. And then, of course, children, even more than that. So sleeping is pretty important. If you can get naps in, that can be very helpful as well. And certainly, Nurse Ann, you probably have some information on this as well as DeVell, since we all did something on this.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in regards to sleep and your mood from a psychological and emotional perspective, it can have a negative impact or a direct impact on cognition if you deprive yourself of sleep. It will and can over time negatively impact your alertness. It can impact your mood, whereas though you may feel as though you're not on point or you're not hitting the mark, you're not as sharp as you are. And from a physiological perspective, there are certain times at night where certain organs are doing what they need to do to help you continue to live a healthy and clean life. And so while you're up, you interrupt that process. And so, things like the kidneys, liver, and things like that are working at certain hours in the morning from like maybe 1 to 3 o'clock. So if you're up and you're depriving yourself of sleep, you're not giving your body the chance to replenish itself and clean and filter things. And how it affects us cognitively is, again, it could change your mood. You might not be as coherent. A lot of students come to me and they're worried because they sometimes get behind in classes, and two major things are out of order: what they're eating and their sleeping patterns. And so they're losing a sense of focus, and they're not retaining and comprehending the information. And once we get those things regulated, they'll matriculate right back into their regular operating manners. And so, yeah, mom, I second that. Mom is right. It will dramatically have an effect on you, especially if you have that pattern over time and it becomes in excess and long term. So, you definitely want to start doing that. And a lot of things that I tell my clients, one of the reasons why we have problems with sleep is because we don't transition. We don't wind down into sleeping. And so we'll work, or we'll do activities, or we'll stay on the phone, or we'll be on the gram, all the way up until, okay, I'm going to lay down in a bed, and then you find yourself just up. And so what you have to do is you have to train your body to prepare and transition to sleep. So you want to make your room kind of separate from your office, from your playground, from your workstation, from the perspective of training your body to know that, okay, at this certain time, I'm going to put my laptop down. I might want to put some meditation music on, or I may even want to do some meditation. I want to turn my phone off. And so you have to have a proper transition, because if you work all the way up into just jumping in the bed, you'll find that your body is still wired, and you haven't given your brain the time to kind of wind down and de-escalate. And after a time and over a matter of time, it just becomes a condition that we have, and we wonder why we feel kind of off kilter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, I know that was a lot in a very short amount of time.
No, that was great. The only other thing I would add to that as a tip with the sleep routine or the transitioning would be on these devices. They emit what's called blue light, and that light is the light that activates within us the awake hormone. And so it can be very helpful if you're able to put that light on a black setting, and you're able to do that within your settings. That can also help in terms of diminishing some of that blue light and that awakeness that it can generate for you. And there's also research that looks at putting your device away an hour before you start that transitioning. So it's not like you put it down as Mr. Kent was saying for 10 minutes before you're ready. Try about an hour, and you might try reading something. I know, like reading a textbook that'll put you to sleep. Don't tell your professors. I'm sorry, Chef Jay. Reading a textbook. Number one. That you can also journal. Journaling is very good in terms of winding down the body. I know I do word search puzzles before I go to bed. It just helps me clear my mind, and I'm only focusing on finding the word, and then I can just focus on falling asleep. So being able to have different things like that in your arsenal, in your toolbox, can be very helpful. Yeah. So let's see. This brings us to almost the end. Let's give some time for final remarks. Certainly, Nurse Ann, if you have any final remarks, something that you wanted to mention that wasn't mentioned previously, please do so.
Well, I think in terms of enjoyment, certainly nutrition and cooking and the way things are presented, I mean, that all adds to our overall enjoyment of the food and nutrition.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, and I think Chef Wiggins talked about that in terms of if he can't, he'll make it himself, or the satisfaction of grinding his own coffee beans. So yeah, there is some enjoyment within that, definitely. And then also the cultural aspect of being able to prepare food as for our loved ones, with our loved ones. There is a cultural piece that can be celebratory around food as well.
Absolutely. I want to piggyback on what Mr. Kent said. When you sleep, the hours of sleep that you get has a direct result on the functioning of your body the next day. When you sleep, your body is resetting itself from the day that you just had. So let's think about it. I like to bring things right to people's understanding. Let's think about your cell phone. You have something to do. Am I stuck? Am I frozen?
No, not at all. Go right ahead.
Okay. You have something to do, and you need to charge your cell phone. You don't have enough time to charge your cell phone all the way, but you have to go somewhere and record or use your cell phone. Before you can finish your assignment of recording, because you haven't recharged your cell phone battery all the way, you aren't able to capture the last 10 minutes of the important event, the important class, the important occasion, wedding, bar mitzvah, christening, because you haven't recharged your battery all of the way. Same thing. Your body hasn't had enough time to reset, like a computer. You should reset your computer every day. Do you do it? No. You leave it on all night, and then you override it and make it work another day. It's the same thing you do to your body. Is your body going to crash? No. Will it have an adverse effect later on if you continue to do that? Yes. And there's no other way to show love outside of, a regular man and woman marriage than to cook for someone. There is no greater expression of love than to nourish somebody so that they can live. Think about it. All major events in life, every last one of them involve food. Birth, christening, wedding, death.
Yeah.
All of graduation, all of them have a food component. So food must be important.
Okay. All right. I think there was another question in the chat before we end. Devel?
Absolutely. This question says, what are sources of energy? I cannot function without coffee, Starbucks, or energy drops. And during this pandemic, can feel it.
Can you repeat that, because you kind of we kind of had a break. Yeah, broke up a little.
Okay, my apologies. It says what are ideal sources of energy? I cannot function without coffee, Starbucks, or energy drops. And during this pandemic, can feel it. So the question is, what are
Okay.
some ideal sources of some energy, some healthy sources of
Healthy, right?
ways to
Yeah,
get
natural.
energy?
Okay.
The idea. Okay, I'm gonna take your statement. I can't function without. And you won't until you change those words. Whatever you say, and this is going on, this is a whole nother topic of manifestation. But whatever you say you can't do, immediately, you can't do it. Because you put yourself in a position to not be able to function without your coffee. Now, I don't know how old you are. I don't know what your finances look like. But guess what? There was a time when there was no Starbucks Grande or Venti Frappuccino to load up on. When you were in kindergarten through 12th grade, you functioned without coffee. There is no coffee switch that happens in an adult's life that says, oh, you need coffee. It's your mind. Your mind says that. Your mind says, I need to go spend $6 on this and walk down and look cool with my Frappuccino or my mocha latte. You have supplemented your nutrition and your breakfast with that. You made that conscious choice. Now make the conscious choice to save that money and buy some fruits and vegetables and start your day off with an orange, which is immediate energy. Anything orange is immediate energy. Sweet potato, squashes, oranges, immediate energy. And do that for a week and see how you feel, not how you think about how you feel.
Excellent. And to your point, you had mentioned before almonds, great source. Raisins, great source of energy as well. You talked about granola, making your own. I would imagine would encompass some of those ingredients: cranberries, oats, those types of things that can give us that natural lift.
Absolutely.
That can give us the sugars and the carbohydrates that we need for that natural lift, grapes and things of that nature. So those might be healthy. Those are healthy choices that you're not going to find on a shelf, right? Those are the healthy choices that are whole foods, right? That you might find in the produce section, or you might find raisins on the shelf because they're in a box. But they're still going to be in a particular section, maybe in the fruit section, the canned fruit. Looking into different things like that, dried fruit can also be good in terms of energy boosters and natural occurring ways.
And if I just may, I would challenge everyone to try a smoothie in the morning as opposed to a cup of coffee and see what type of energy you get consistently with that. And you have creative control over the smoothies. Now I'm talking fresh fruits and vegetables, and so you'd be surprised on what type of energy that will give you. I know that the caffeine will give spike, but it'll also give you a crash. And I guarantee you that a fresh smoothie in the morning won't give you a crash. It'll give you that energy boost, but you won't crash. And so you might want to try that as well.
Indeed. And lastly, with regard to the coffee, one of the things that I have done to cut back, and I only do 1 cup a day, but still, and that is to have more water than actually coffee. And I can then add more water and continue to add more water until the effects aren't necessarily the same, but the taste, I can adapt to it. And I feel like I'm still getting that cup of coffee, if you will. So that I just add that for you all. Okay, so let's see. We are at the very, very end. So here comes the push for, please fill out the evaluation form. Mr. Kent, can you post that again in the chat for individuals to access? And a reminder to put your email in the chat if you haven't, so that you can be put into our pool for a raffle at the end of the year. And now come all of the thanks. Thank you to Nurse Ann. Thank you for your time and your information and your willingness to be a part of this panel. Appreciate that. And Chef Jay Wiggins, thank you so much for your insight, for your examples, and for the resources that you also gave our audience. I think we're going to have you back. So, and I'm reading the chat. We're getting some good responses from the students. So, this might be something that we even expand and have you talk about a bit more, particularly the idea of the gut, being the place where that generates mood. And the impact of food on that too. I mean, there's some correlation there, at least within recent research. So,
real quick,
that might be another avenue.
Get more ginger in your diet. Get more garlic in your diet. They help build up the immune system and they help thin blood. I'm going to put my Instagram in the chat. If you have any questions on anything, Mother's Day meal, health, diabetes, cancer, hit me on a DM. I answer them all day long. So it was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Wonderful. All right. Please put that in the chat before we end so that we can get that in the recording. so that others might access that. Fantastic.
Yes, thank you,
Mr. Kent, do you have any final words for us? You want to take us on home?
Yeah. And for me, I just want to share with you all that, your success really is directly related and correlated to your nutrition. So the more that you invest into your temple and your body, any endeavor that you are engaging in will be that much more successful, because a healthy body means healthy mind, healthy brain function, energy to carry out your tasks, motivation in life. And so you definitely need to make sure that you capitalize off of these resources. I've had a blast. I'm so grateful just to be a part of this panel. I'm grateful for our panelists, our audience, and I just had a blast. So be healthy, y'all. Be healthy.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. I've been your moderator, Danielle Ashore Bryant, one of the counselors in the Wellness Center. So feel free to reach out,